Diaries. Day 100! Hey! Hopefully editor Daniel puts in some cool effects or something.
You're welcome.
100 days ago I separated from my now ex-wife and I now have 12k followers on TikTok. I should get divorced more often. But I wanted to use today's video to talk a little bit about the divorce. Now this isn't an excuse to bash on my ex, and I'm not going to do that either, but I just want to talk a bit about my feelings leading up to the divorce, because one of the most common questions I've gotten is, how did you know it was the right time? Now obviously that question, or that answer I should say, will be different for everyone and everyone's relationship. With the hindsight that I have now and the ability to actually have time to think and look back at my relationship, I've been able to sort of pinpoint certain moments in the past that I may not have been aware of at the time. So things were really rough for a while, mostly because we were trying to figure out how to, support a stay-at-home mum of one income and raise the kids, buy a house, get married, do all that very nuclear family stuff. You know, at one point we had the mortgage and the white picket fence and the oldest son and the youngest girl and the stay-at-home mum. We achieved the goal that a lot of people set out to do. But all throughout that process, there were times when I would be unhappy and I would just think, nah, it's gonna get better. Going through that parenting through separation course, they mentioned that on average, someone might think about leaving their long-term partner up to 7 times before they actually go ahead and do it. In my case, I can reflect back and pinpoint there was a time before we'd even moved to Christchurch where I was unhappy and I told myself things will get better, but they just kind of didn't, and the resent just kind of started building. Now I should probably clarify that this was a semi-recent development. I wasn't sitting on these feelings for like 10 years, but it was just sort of in the last 18 months to 2 years where that slowly started building and I started having these sorts of realizations. Now, every relationship requires a bit of work, right? You work together to become better versions of yourself, hopefully anyway. And that was what I would consider a cornerstone of our relationship, was that open and honest conversation, saying that this makes me unhappy. Okay, well, let's not do that then. And of course, that didn't always resolve the issues because humans are complex. But it's nice to know that we could air that sort of stuff out. What I noticed, reflecting back now, someone asked me at what point do the arguments become too much that you decide to call it quits, and the reality is that we weren't arguing because I had checked out of the relationship and I just didn't care anymore. And I didn't really notice that how far back that had sort of happened until now that I've separated, that I can look back and realise that it's probably been going on a lot longer than I even realise now. Now, realistically, things are never going to improve if you never talk to your partner, but if you've been talking for ages and you don't see any improvement, eventually you're just not going to try anymore. I'll always remember what my dad told me, because I think it's a fantastic quote, and that's, there are points in your life where you have to make a choice, either to stay or to make a change. And that doesn't just apply to relationships, it could apply to jobs or houses or whatever. But neither path is easy. Both of them require work because you're still unhappy, so even if you choose to stay, there's still work that's going to have to be put in. In my case, I was already checked out and I didn't want to do the work anymore. But if you find yourself in a similar situation, just remember that your partner deserves to know, assuming it's not going to be, bad for your health. In my case, we got kids. I wanted to make sure the relationship stayed amicable. So there was no getting up and leaving in the middle of the night. It was sitting down with her and saying, I'm not happy. And realistically, I think that conversation probably happened, I think it was about a whole month before I actually decided to call it quits. So we'd had the conversation and then spent some time still living together because I didn't want to just end things. I wanted to see if things could improve, but I just sort of realised that no, I was already too far gone. I was spending more time fantasising, being by myself, than fantasising a future with her. So at that point, what did I really want? And so I left. And now here I am. I left her with pretty much everything. The whole idea was that I didn't want to mess with the kids too much, so I didn't want to like strip half the house bare. Just left her with everything and rebought a whole bunch of new stuff. And that's why you see in those first early days I was buying beds and all sorts, because I needed all that stuff. I needed the car even. We only had one car. And even then it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows. I like what a few people have said about grief and how you're sort of grieving something that you thought you would have and it hasn't turned out that way. And there's definitely a bit of that. I've been sad a lot. I've been really happy a lot. And then there's also been times where I've just kind of been mad. Mad at myself, mad at her. Again, no hate towards her, but I just, it's all part of the process. All ups and downs. My brain is a mess. But here we are at 100 days, ready for another 100. I'm excited for my meetup tomorrow. No idea how many people are going to show up. Someone yesterday mentioned we should go to the pub afterwards, and I was like, yes, that's exactly the energy that I'm looking for. So I'll see some of you there. Most of you I'll catch online on the flip side. Oh, and I discovered, rewatching some of my early videos, that I actually said in some of the early videos, see you on the flip side. And that just sounds kind of gross now, because that's not what I'm used to saying. So I'm not going to do that. I'll catch you on the flip side.